A very good afternoon to all our grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's mathematical literacy lesson. My name is Mampani Kekan as usual. Remember that the lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with the Cyborg Discovery Center. Now, boys and girls, it's that day again where we are now going to look at the preparation for paper 2. I'm sure that you all did well in paper 1. It was a very nice question paper. So we are now looking forward to paper 2. Now, in today's lesson, boys and girls, obviously you must have an idea of how paper 2 is going to look like. You must have an idea of what topics are going to be in paper 2. Okay, now in terms of the structure of paper 2, this is what you must remember, just to make sure that you study the correct topics and you also have an idea of how many marks each topic is going to count. Okay, of course, in paper 2, we're going to have maps and plans and other representations of physical world. In simple terms, we just say maps and plans. In general, it's just maps and plans. Now, the maps and plans are going to count about 40%. Now, for 40% of 150 marks, that is supposed to be 60 marks. So, in the question paper, you must expect about 60 marks of maps and plans. And then we're going to have 55% of measurement. Okay, very interesting and a challenging topic in some cases. So measurement will count about 55%. Now 55% is about 83 marks. Okay, it's just a basic mathematical literacy. If you calculate 55% of 150 marks, we expect about 83 marks, more or less around 83 marks. And then we also have 5%. Now, if you calculate about 5%, that will give you about 7,5. So in this case, that will be around 7 marks, 7 marks or 8 marks. Even if the examiner would decide to make the marks a little bit more. So for 60, we might expect about 61, 62, 63, or more 58, 59, but it's going to be around that 60 marks. So very, very important, maps and plans, measurement, and then of course, probability. Probability will be included in some of the questions of maps and plans and also measurement. It's not going to be a topic on its own, right? But the other thing that is very important is you might still get a little bit of finance. In this case, finance, we don't expect more than 10 marks. That is based on finance. But the finance will come from the questions that will be asked under maps and plans or the measurement. So now, boys and girls, I'm sure you now have an idea of what topics will be in paper 2. So it means you must now go back and make sure that you study the correct topics for paper 2. You are not necessarily going to study the topics that you did in paper 1. Okay, now the structure of the question paper, like in paper 1, we expect the question paper to have 5 questions. Okay, 1 to 4 questions or 5 questions. So I mean we are going to have question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. Okay, that is what we expect. There might also be question 5 as you saw in paper 1. And then again, you saw in paper 1 that question 1 consisted of the easiest questions that you can come across. The easiest questions that you can come across. If you find some of the questions in question 1 very challenging, so it means you would not have prepared yourself. So question 1, all the questions, we expect them to be very, very, very easy. But now in the prelim, question 1, we expect about not 20 marks, but it must be about 30 marks, plus or minus 5, somewhere around 30 marks there. So question 1 will consist of about 30 marks, of which those questions will be the easiest. You will see when you'll be answering the question that those questions are actually the easiest. And then, of course, question 2, maps and plans. Now, boys and girls, we know that with maps and plans as well, maps and plans consist of very easy questions. That is where you're supposed to score marks as well. Very, very important. Question 3 consists of measurement. We know that most of you find measurement a little bit challenging, but whatever is challenging, there's always somewhere where you can score marks. If you find it very challenging, you will still get those questions that are very, very easy, regardless of the topic being very challenging. And then, of course, question 4, we're going to have a combination. In other words, you're going to get scenarios. Okay, if it's question 4, you're going to have a scenario where maps and plans and measurement are combined. The same thing with question 5, you're going to get scenarios where measurement together with maps and plans are combined. Okay, but question 1 is 30 marks. It's a combination of maps and plans together with a measurement. Question 2 is going to be about maps and plans only. Question 3 is going to be about measurement only. Question 4, it's going to be about a combination of maps and plans together with measurement. Question 5 is going to be a combination of maps and plans together with measurement. So yeah, then as we indicated, 5% of probability and 5% of finance. Right, now as I indicated, boys and girls, that question 1, we expect the easiest questions. I'm sure now you should be in a position where you can round off. Rounding is very, very important. You must know what a ratio is. You must know what a rate is. You must know how to calculate a percentage. You must know about proportion. Okay, proportion, indirect or direct proportion. These are some of the terminologies that you should know, or if there are any questions or calculations that must be done. Rounding, it's there. Definitely there'll be a question about rounding. There will be a question about ratio, rates, percentages, and proportion. And then at this stage, boys and girls, there cannot be anyone who is not sure about converting between metric units. Actually, conversion of the metric unit is the foundation of paper 2. If you still find yourself struggling with conversion, I promise you, you're going to struggle with most of the questions in paper 2. Now, actually, these are the basics: rounding, ratio, rates, percentages, and proportion. Then from there, we've got conversion. How to convert from a millimeter to a centimeter. How to convert from a centimeter to a meter. How to convert from a kilometer to a millimeter. This is something that you should know already, okay, because this is the foundation. How to convert between a gram and a kilogram. How to convert between a milliliter and liters. How to convert between milliliters and liters. Boys and girls, this is something that you should know now. Please, if you are still not sure how to convert between these units, you must go and study that, because that is the foundation of paper 2. And then, of course, measure accurately using measuring instruments. You must know how to use a ruler. If they have to ask you to measure from one point to another, you must be in a position where you've got a ruler that is clearly calibrated. The measurements are clearly indicated there, so that when they say measure from point A to point B, then you can clearly see on your ruler that this is 7 centimeters, this is 8 centimeters, and so on. Okay, and then use the BMI formula. So it's very important that you know how to use a BMI formula. And then the terminologies, again, we always emphasize, I'm not going to dwell too long on the terminologies. Boys and girls, you can think of any terminologies that you encounter in paper 2. You must be in a position where you can give the definition. Now, when you give a definition, you can use your own words, but as long as your definition is relevant, very, very important. So you must know what an area is, you must know what the perimeter is, you must know what the volume is, you must know what the radius is. Okay, and then also how to determine radius of a circle from a given diameter. I'm sure now you know that if you are given a diameter and then they will say determine the radius, you must divide by 2. If they give you the radius and they say determine the diameter, you must multiply by 2. And then of course, with regard to units, we all know that if a unit has got a square, it means that unit is for an area. It might be an area only, or it might be for a total surface area. If you've got a centimeter with a cube, centimeter cubed, and then that unit is for a volume. That is something that you need to know. Then, of course, you must be able to read time values on a clock or on a watch. Okay, determine the elapsed time. Now, elapsed time, if they say elapsed time, we can say, for instance, if your first period starts at 10 past 8 and it ends at 10 to 9. Okay, what is the elapsed time? How long is the period? In this case, we're talking about the elapsed time. If you are walking from home to school, you leave home at 7:15 and then you arrive school at 7:35. How long did you walk? So there we are talking about the elapsed time. They want to know about the duration. Okay, and then of course, explain the meaning of a given scale. If it's 1:200, it means 1 centimeter on the map. It's 1 centimeter on the map represents 100 centimeters in reality. However way your teacher taught you, but it's very important to know this. And then on a map, obviously, you must be able to identify labels, names of national roads. If a road is denoted with letter N, capital letter N, it means it's a national road that must be traveled. Identify the names of the towns. Identify the scale of a map. If the scale is a number scale or it's a bar scale. Very, very important. Explain the meaning of the terms. What do we mean by floor plan? What do we mean by elevation plan? What do you mean by layout plan? Boys and girls, you have been doing this throughout the year. So you cannot be in a position where you once did floor plans, but you don't know how to define a floor plan. I'm sure for now you have a picture of what I mean by a floor plan or how a floor plan looks like, but you can come up with your own ways of giving a definition as long as the definition is relevant. And read off the values of a given dimensions on the plan, e.g. the length of the wall is 4 meters. In other words, if a plan is given, the values of the sides are given, the dimensions are given, you must be able to tell that this side is 5 meters or the other side is 7 meters, and so on and so on. So you do have an idea there. So boys and girls, I'm not going to dwell a lot on this because we actually did this before. So I'm just refreshing your memory. I'm just worried about the time. And then, of course, you must be able to use a given scale to determine actual measurements. If a scale is given and then they say determine the actual measurements, determine the actual length or determine the actual distance. Use a given scale in conjunction with measurement or plan to determine the length or the dimensions. This is actually similar to the previous one. Determine the scale of a map or plan. So you must be able to determine the scale. All right. If they say the plan, the measurement on the map is 35 millimeters, but in reality it's 40 meter. I mean, let's say it's 150 meters. Then how are you going to come up with the scale there? So if it's 30 millimeters is to 150, obviously you're going to say 35 millimeters is to 150 meters. So by so doing, you're determining the scale. How do you simplify this one? So obviously you'll first have to make the units to be the same. So this one, you're going to convert it to millimeters. And then from there, you simplify. It's just to give you an idea because we'll come to the questions later on. And then, of course, identify the position of two locations on a map and give and use given distance value to determine the traveling distance between the two locations. Interpret a given set of directions. Describe what location the directions lead to. So obviously with regard to maps, you must be able to give directions. And then, of course, under question 2, maps and plans, the type of questions that you must expect: provide a set of directions. Okay, use a map in conjunction, similar questions. Identify a possible route between two locations. Estimate the traveling times between two or more locations. Or they might say estimate or calculate. Then again, under maps and plans, use a given key to identify the number of windows, doors, rooms. You know, the symbols will be indicated there. You must know the symbols. You must know that this symbol is for a window, or this one is for a door. This one is for a bathtub in the bathroom. This one is for a basin, and so on and so on. And then the next one is identify on which plane a particular structure is shown. The door is shown on the north elevation, so you must be able to tell if a compass direction is given. You must be able to tell that these windows are on the northern elevation, or these doors, or these doors or these windows are on the southern elevation, and so on. You must also be able to interpret plans to determine the dimensions of a room in order to establish amount of carpet needed. Okay, it might be carpet, it might be tiles. If you are given an area and then they say the area of a room is about 20 square meters, and then now you need to tile or you need to carpet, then how are you going to determine the cost and so on? And then make connections between planes showing on different views of the same structure. Explain which wall on a floor plan is represented on a particular side view. So this one is about the elevations. If you look at the floor plan, you will see that this side has got two windows and a door, but when you look on the elevation plan, you must be able to tell whether this is the northern or this is the southern elevation. Okay, then of course under question 3, measurement, you must be able to convert between degree Celsius to degree Fahrenheit. Obviously, this is the conversion of temperatures. Remember, the formula will be given there. You must be able to do the substitution. So the formula for converting between the temperatures, the degree Celsius and the degree Fahrenheit. Okay, convert between different systems. You must be able to convert between metric units and imperial units, inches to centimeters, foot to meters, okay, miles to kilometers, and so on and so on. But remember, with regard to the metric units, converting between metric units and imperial units, you don't need to memorize the conversion factors. The examiner will give you the conversion factors, so you must know how to use those conversion factors. Okay, convert between different systems using a given conversion table. So if a conversion table is given and then they ask you a question, you must be able to choose the correct conversion factor and use it to convert. And then of course, we must be able to calculate perimeter. You must be able to calculate area. You must be able to calculate volume by substituting given values. Record time values at a school sports event and perform calculations with time in order to determine winning teams. So these are about time differences. Okay, the duration, I think we spoke about it before. Okay, and then of course we said question 4, that is where you're going to have an integration, or you're going to have a combination of maps and plans together with the measurement. So you must expect question 4 and question 5. Okay, boys and girls, we spoke about the ruler. Please make sure that when you get into examination, you've got a ruler. Remember, no borrowing will be allowed. So you must just make sure that you've got your own ruler. And then the ruler clearly shows the measurement, so that you don't struggle to read the measurements there. Okay, the measuring tapes. Okay, actually, in this case, you must know that if it's a ruler, can I use a ruler to measure the length of the classroom? Or can I use the ruler to measure the length of the schoolyard? And so on and so on. So in terms of instruments, you must know that which instruments can be used to measure what. So a ruler, obvious. And then we've got a measuring tape. Obviously, if you want to measure the length of the classroom, you can use a measuring tape. But again, you must be able to read the values on the measuring tape. Like this one, if you are given a measuring tape like this one, and then they ask you to read there, okay, what is that value there? You can see that you've got 1 and you've got 2. So you must be able to tell. So between 1 and 2, so we've got between 1 and 2, we've got how many spaces? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In this case, I say 2 minus 1, it's 2. If I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then I say 1 divided by 8, then I get 0,125. So it means the first one will be 1,125. And then after that, what will be the value after 1,125, and so on and so on. So you must be able to interpret the calibrations, the measurements that are indicated. Very, very important. Okay, obviously you must be able to read the odometers. If the odometer is indicated that is there, you must be able to tell what is the value there. So very, very easy. That is where you will be able to score a lot of marks there. And then of course the bathroom scale, you might be lucky when they give you the digital one, but with the analog one, you might struggle to read off. So you must also know how to read off the value there on the analog, and then obviously on the digital scale as well. Okay, this one is a kitchen scale. It's the same information. You must be able to read. You must be able to read. So reading off the values on the measuring instrument is also very important. Here we've got a measuring jack. Obviously, you must be able to tell how many milliliters are there, and so on and so on. So if a jack is given, okay, the temperature scanner, okay, or instruments that we are using to measure temperatures. Okay, most of you will be familiar with a scanner, but we also have thermometer. So if the thermometer is given and then they say the temperature is there, you must be able to tell what is the amount there, what is the value of the temperature there. So very, very important. I'm just refreshing your memory. Okay, now boys and girls, with regard to glossary of terms, terminologies, very, very important. I'm not going to go through all the terminologies, but obviously you must know how to define perimeter. You must know how to define length. You must know how to define mass. You must know how to define BMI, not what BMI stands for. BMI stands for body mass index, but the examiner might also ask you what a BMI is or give the definition of a BMI. And then circumference. What do you mean by a radius? And what do you mean by a diameter? All those concepts that you are working with, boys and girls, when I say a diameter, there must be a picture in your mind. So that picture, please just explain it in words, how you understand it. Right? Then of course, you must know what we mean by an area. You must know what we mean by a total surface area. You must know what we mean by a volume. You must know what we mean by a capacity. In most cases, the examiners would ask you the difference between volume and capacity. So you must know the difference between the two, because they know that most of you are actually confusing the two. Okay, and then of course, you must know what a bar scale is. You must know what a number scale is. You must know what we mean by an elevation map. You must know what we mean by an elevation plans. And you must know what we mean by floor plans. Boys and girls, all these concepts, you did them with your teachers. I'm sure that this is not the first time that you see this concept, but you must be able to define them. Of course, you must know what a street map is. Okay, you must know what a street map is. You must know what a route map is. You must know what a national road is. You must know what a national road. You must know how do we identify a national road. Very, very important. Remember, we said any road that will start with capital letter N is a national road. Okay, and then of course regional. If we start with capital letter R, that will be a regional road. And then of course the municipal road, that will be the one that starts with capital letter M. You see M1, M2, M3, and a regional road. We've got R80, we've got R70, we've got R50, and so on and so on. So you must know that those are the regional roads. Okay, and then of course, boys and girls, the types of scales. You must know that we've got a bar scale. In some learners will say it's a line scale, but the most common name is a bar scale. So with regard to scales, we've got a number scale, okay, which is written in the form of a ratio, and we've got a bar scale, which is in the form of a bar. Okay, then with regard to maps, obviously the sitting plans, the types of maps that you can get, it's a sitting plan. When you write an examination now, you don't just sit, there's a sitting plan. There's a layout of a classroom. There's a layout of building and sports field at a school. There's a layout of stores in shopping center. They might give you a map of a shopping center. Okay, they might give you a map that shows sitting plans in cinemas or in stadiums, exam centers, or wedding or for metric dance. Okay, these are the sitting plans that we refer to. If you look at this is a sitting plan of a classroom, which clearly indicates the tables and the names of the students, okay, or the names of the learners. Okay, and then in this case they've indicated where which table is, okay, where the tables, so the tables are. So here we've got students tables, and you also have a teacher's table. Maybe you've got a cupboard there, or you've got another table, and you've got another table there. So this is just a layout of a sitting plan. And then of course they might give you a sitting plan at a stadium. So they might give you a layout of a stadium and then ask you questions based on that. And then of course street maps, okay, with or without grids. Now obviously you must know how to interpret a grid. You can see that in this case we've got blocks. Okay, so in this case, for instance, if they say in which grid reference do you find Eastern Cape? Okay, in which grid reference do you find Eastern Cape? So I'm sorry, East London, not Eastern Cape. So there is East London, and you can see there a dot. Most of you tend to look at the name, but in most cases there will be a dot or a star next to the name. So look at where the dot is or where the star is, because in some cases the name might overlap to another cell, or it might overlap to another block. So it's very important that you look at it. Most of the places they will indicate a dot or a star next to it. So you look where the star is, the star will actually be the one that will tell. So in this case, you can see that East London is in E5. So this is what we mean by a grid reference. Okay, we spoke about national, provincial, or rail maps. Okay, so usually on the national they will indicate the N's, and if it's a regional, you will see the N's and you also see the R's. The N's for the national roads and the R's for the regional roads. If it's a city, like the city of Johannesburg or the city of Tshwane and so on, so you might see N, you might see M, you might see R, because you find that there are all those type of roads that are actually passing through the city or are in that city as well. Okay, the strip chart, okay, this one they like it, okay, but they might even if they bring it, they might bring it with different questions. Okay, the elevation map. Okay, now the elevation map, we spoke about an elevation map before, but in simple terms, an elevation map just shows the high and lows of the road. It just shows the high and lows of the road. Like in this case, they say this is for Comrade Marathon. So Comrade Marathon usually is from Durban to Pietermaritzburg. Okay, so if it's from Durban to Pietermaritzburg, you can see that at the starting point, that is the lowest point. And then it means they are going up the hill. They are going up the hill. So as they are running, it means they'll go up and down, up and down, up and down. So like in this case, you can see they're going up and down, but in general, it's going up. But there's some cases where, like for instance, here at the beginning, they go up and they'll go down. They'll go up and then they'll go down. It's just the high and lows of the road. That is what we mean by the elevation map. And then the distance table, you must also be able to interpret the distance table. Like in this case, if I want to know the distance between George and Johannesburg, so I can just go to the table and say George and Johannesburg. So the distance will be 1,171. I can choose any two places. If it's East London, now I want to know East London and Messina. So I'll just go to East London. There is East London, and then this is Messina. So it means the distance between East London and Messina is 1,512. So you must also be able to use the distance table. Very, very important, boys and girls. Course, the most favorite, the compass direction, very, very important. So you know the compass direction, you must know in actually the examiner will always give you the direction or where n is pointing. So wherever point n is pointing, so you must be able to complete your compass direction. Okay, so please, this is where you cannot afford to lose marks, boys and girls. Very important. Okay, now remember in this one we say the general direction. General direction, they are not saying explain. They don't say explain how to get there. They just want you to give an idea of which side. Is it in the north? Is it in the northeast? Or is it in the south? And so on. That is the general direction. However, there are some questions where the examiner might say give a set of directions. So in other words, you must explain how to move from one place to another, or how to get from one place to another. Very, very important. So in most cases, some of the ways that you might use: go straight and then turn right, turn left, okay, or make a U-turn, or go past. So in other words, you give directions, say go past this building and so on and so on, or cross, okay, or the place is across. So in this case, if you look at this, there's a house there, the house is across the star. So this one is the house is next to the star, and in this one is the star is at the corner. So usually when you give a direction, you say this place is at the corner of this street and this street, okay, or this place is 1 block or 2 blocks from the corner of this street and this street. So these are some of the ways that you must be able to use. Okay, or take the first right. Some people will say take the first right or take the second right, but this is just to give an idea of how you give a set of direction, not a general direction, but a set of direction is where you explain in detail how to get there. Okay, and then of course this one, maybe let's say you happen to have a map where there is a roundabout or a traffic circle as it is known. At the roundabout, take the first exit and so on. So when they say the first exit, so this is the first exit. Some of you might have heard this when you are using navigator. They say when you get to a roundabout, take the first exit or take the second exit or take the third exit. You must have an idea of what they mean by that. Okay, now of course the relationship between distance, most of you will know how to use it. Okay, that if it's a speed that must be calculated, the formula must be distance over time. Sometimes the examiner might try to trick you. Okay, they say this is the distance, it's equals to speed multiplied by time. They give you the formula like that, but when they ask you a question, they say calculate time or determine the speed. So it means you can't use this formula. That is why we always say you must be able to use this triangle. So if it's a speed, it's the distance over time. If it's time, it's distance over speed. If it's distance, then it's speed multiplied by time. So always look at how the formula is given. Okay, now of course the conversion table, the length 1 inch is equals to 2.5 centimeters. The table might be slightly different in the examination, but this is just to give an idea that 1 foot is about 30 centimeters, 5 miles is about 8 kilometers, and 1 pound is equal to 450. Fortunately, with this imperial, you don't need to memorize them. Okay, you only need to know how to use them. Okay, the ones that you need to know are the centimeters, the millimeters, the kilometers, and so on. So those ones you need to know. Once they say convert from centimeter to millimeter, or you have to convert from centimeter to millimeter, you must know which conversion factor must be used. But these ones, you don't need to memorize them. You only need to know how to use them. Very, very important. Okay, 1 teaspoon is equals to 5 milliliters, 1 tablespoon. So this one, the examiner will also give it to you. Okay, so the examiners will always give it to you. But even if it happens that the examiner doesn't give it to you, most of you are working with this. Most of you have been working with this throughout the year. So you might still remember it. Okay, conversion between the temperatures, we spoke about them. So you must be able to do the substitution and simplify. Very, very important. Okay, converting between the times, you must know 1 hour is equals to 60 minutes, 1 minute is equals to 60 seconds. Okay, a century is equals to 100 years, 1 year is equals to 12 months, or 1 year is equals to 365 years if it's a normal year, or 1 year is equals to 366 days if it's a leap year, and so on. 1 week, if it's a full week, is 7 days. If it's a school week, a normal school week is from Monday to Friday. So it means a normal school week will be 5 days. So those are some of the common knowledge that you must have. Those are some of the common knowledge that you must have. Okay, very, very important. We spoke about digital clock and analog clock. So you must know the difference, which one is the digital, which one is the analog, and how to read the time, how to write down the time that is indicated on the digital, how to write down the time that is indicated on the analog. Okay, the BMI, very, very important. So you also need to know how to read the growth charts. Okay, you must know how to read the growth charts, and you must also be able to use the BMI formula. If the BMI is given and they ask you to calculate the mass, you must know how to calculate it. If you are given the mass, if you are given the BMI, you are also given the mass, and then they ask you to calculate the height, you must also be able to calculate it. It's very, very important, boys and girls. Right. Now, I have actually gone through the summary of what you need to know in order to get into examination. I was just refreshing your memory. I was just reminding you everything that you needed to know. Okay. As I always say, whenever you go and when you go and write a prelim, okay, our assumption is you are in a position where you can answer any question because all the topics, all the sections have been covered. All the topics, all the sections have been covered. Okay. If there's a section that you're still struggling with, boys and girls, I always tell learners that we don't pray and hope that that section it's not going to be in the examination. We don't do that. You must go and study that section and be sure about it. Okay. We are not trying to spot the examination here. We must be in a position where we'll be able to answer any question. Because even if some of those sections are not going to be in this prelim question paper, but they might be there in the final examination. So you are not only preparing yourself for the prelim, but you are also preparing yourself for the final exam paper. So it's very important that you master all the sections, all the subsections. Very, very important. Okay. As I indicated, when you see this question, you must be able to answer it. There shouldn't be any difficulty. If you look at this question, it's taken from one of the previous question papers. But now imagine if you are seeing this question for the first time, were you going to answer this one? Okay, are you going to be able to answer it? So if you were seeing this for the first time, let's see. It's a Spurs Bean Tree Coffee Kiosk offers an array of coffees, sandwiches, and muffins in a variety of sizes. The different coffee cup sizes are shown alongside. Use the information to answer the questions that follow. And this was taken from question 1. Write the ratio. You see, I spoke about the ratio. Okay, you must be able to write a ratio, obviously. You must have an idea. Ratio is not a fraction. Okay, so write down the ratio of the second smallest cup. Okay, in terms of sizes, in this case, we'll say this is the smallest. So this will be the first smallest, this will be the second smallest, and the third one, the fourth one, and so on. Depending on how you interpret this, because this is the smallest, and then the second smallest, obviously, is going to be this one, the 300 milliliters. Okay, they say the ratio of the second smallest. Now we know that the ratio must have semicolons, so it's 300 milliliters. Okay, and then they say to that of the largest cup. The largest cup is 500 milliliters. So there is the ratio. Write the ratio of the second smallest cup to that of the largest cup in simplest form. So it means we need to simplify this. How do we simplify? Okay, so if I look at this one, the units are the same, so I don't have to worry. I don't have to make the units to be the same. So the units will cancel out, the milliliter and the milliliter. Remember, the simplest answer cannot have the unit. The simplest answer must not have the units. So if I look at this, if I divide it by 100, if I divide this by 100, if I divide by 100, and this will be 3:5. This is the simplest form. So it simply means I can't simplify it further. Okay, I can't simplify it further. The answer is 3:5. But some might say, why don't I divide it by 300? You can also do that. If you divide it by 300, if you say this is 300 milliliters is to 500 milliliters, then we divide by 300. Milliliter and milliliter will cancel out, is 300 divide by 300, and this one will be 1:2. If I take 500, I divide it by 300, then I get what is the one, about 1,6. So that will be about 1,67. Okay, that is the simplest form as well. Okay, but this one we actually do it when the examiner says write it as a unit ratio, write the answer as a unit ratio. When they say write it as a unit ratio, we expect one of the values to be 1. Okay, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with this one. 3:5, it's in the simplest form. Okay, it's in the simplest form, and this one is also in the simplest form, but it's written as a unit ratio. Okay, so any one of the two answers would still be correct. Simplest form, it means you can't simplify it further. Okay, there's no number that goes into 3 and then into 5 completely. 3 years goes into 3 once, but into 5 it goes once, but there's a remainder. So very, very important. Okay, still on the very same question. It's the barista mixes 20 grams of espresso and 120 milliliters of milk in 1:6 ratio. But he realized that he needs to make 500 milliliters of coffee. Okay, so in this case, it means when they prepare coffee, they mix 20 grams of espresso and then 120 milliliters of milk. Okay, then but this one they need to make 500 milliliters of milk. So this one must be a mixture of 500. So if it's 500 milliliters, how much milk do we get in here? They say determine how much milk is needed to make this cup of coffee. Round your answer to the nearest 10 milliliters. We are still talking about the ratio, and then remember, under ratio we've got a simplification, we've got increase in a ratio, we've got decrease in a ratio, we also have division in a ratio. So it means we need to divide this 500 milliliters in a ratio. Okay, now our ratio is 1:6, and then we know that in order to divide for the milk, okay, so this one is 20 grams and is to 120, but it's 1:6. So the milk must be 6, and this one will be for espresso. Okay, now if I want to know the amount of milk, so it means I need to divide. I need to divide the 500 milliliters. How do we divide in a ratio? First thing, you must work out the sum of the ratio. The sum of the ratio is 1 plus 6, which is equals to 7. And then for the part of milk, then we say therefore the milk will be 6 out of 7, then we multiply by 500. 6 out of 7 multiplied by 100. So if I say 6 divided by 7 and then multiply by 500, the answer is 428,57. Okay, this is for milk. All right, now I need to check the question. The question was determine how much milk is needed to make up this cup. Round your answer to the nearest 10 milliliters. Rounding, boys and girls, is something that you need to. Round your answer to the nearest 10 milliliters. To the nearest 10 milliliters, it means this must be to the nearest number that is divisible by 10. To the nearest number that is divisible by 10. So if it's 428, 428 is between 420 and 430. 420 and 430. But is it closer to 430 or closer or more closer to 420? Then we know that 428 it's actually closer to 430. So therefore, if we run it up to the nearest 10, it's going to be 430. You are actually answering an extra question there. Is the answer itself, and then you are also answering for rounding. So for the part of rounding, since it's a basic, is something that you should be able to get it right. Okay, then another typical exam question taken from the IB May 2024 is a customer has a cylindrical flask as illustrated alongside. Answer the questions that follow. The flask holds 2 500 milliliter cups of coffee. How many liters does this flask hold? How many liters does this flask hold? Okay, from this information, they say this flask holds 2 500 milliliter cups. So the two of them, if we add them together, we're going to have 500 milliliters. We multiply by 2. Or some of you might say 500 milliliters plus another 500 milliliters. So this will give me 1000 milliliters. 1000 milliliters. But wait a minute, the question says how many liters? How many liters? So it means in the end, the answer it must be in liters. You must know now how to convert from liters to milliliters. We all know that 1 liter is equals to 1000 milliliters. Okay, you'll be fortunate if the examiner can give you this conversion factor. Okay, but they still have the right not to give it to you. Okay, because this is what they expect you to know. They actually expect you to know. So if 1 liter is equal to 1000 milliliters, it means if we convert from liters to milliliters, we multiply by 1000. But if we convert from milliliters to liters, we divide by 1000. So if I take this, I divide it by 1000, and this will be 1 and becomes a liter. So how many liters does this flask hold? It's just 1 liter. Okay, so this one is just 1 liter. Okay, then another easy question, determine the radius of the cylindrical flask. Okay, if we look at our picture here, we can see that our diameter there is 8,8 centimeters. Okay, boys and girls, obviously you must be able to convert that, or you must be able to determine the radius, because you know that if you are given the diameter, then therefore the radius will be the diameter divided by 2. So 8,8 centimeters divided by 2, and then we get, I think it must be 4,4 centimeters. So 8,8 divided by 2, 4,4 centimeters. I think this one was very, very, very easy. Okay, then the next question is, you have been working with the formulas throughout the year. I don't know how many times have you used the formulas or different formulae. So you must know them. You must be able to recognize them. You must be able to tell that this one is for calculating circumference, this one is for calculating an area, for in case the examiner doesn't give it to you. Okay, but if you look at this one, they say which formula below will calculate the volume of this flask. Now if you look at the shape of the flask, it's a cylindrical shape. That is a cylindrical shape, it means it's a cylinder. What is the formula for calculating volume of a cylinder? Right, and then we have to be sure about it. This one is 2 pi r squared. Okay, So obviously the formula doesn't have 2 next to it, and we've got 2 pi RH. This one is also not correct because even this one you can see r is not even squared, and then we've got pi r squared h. So the pi r squared h it's actually the formula that we use to calculate the area of a cylindrical shape, of which in this case the flask is in the form of a cylinder. It's a cylindrical shape. So the answer in this case must be letter C. So you only needed to choose the correct letter there. Okay, then 2.3. If the approximate volume of the flask is given as 1021, give the appropriate unit of the measurement. So in this case, if we had to calculate the volume of the flask, which is a cylinder, what will be the correct unit? If you look at this, you can see that the height is given in centimeters. The diameter is also given in centimeters. Even if we had to convert the diameter to a radius, the radius will still be in centimeters. Okay, as long as everything that must be substituted there. Think about this. V is equals to pi r squared h. You only need to know the value of the radius, and you also need to know the value of the height in order to calculate the volume. The radius and the height must be in the same unit. If the radius and the height are in centimeters, your volume will be in centimeter cubed. If the radius and the height, both of them are in meters, your volume will be in meter cubed. If the radius and the height are in millimeters, then your volume will be in millimeter cubed. But what is important is whenever you do the substitution into this formula, both radius and the height must be in the same unit. So in this case, if we had to calculate the volume, the unit for the volume will be centimeter cubed. Just centimeter cubed, because the height and the diameter are given in centimeters. Right, then the maps. Okay, now with regard to the maps, it's for this one, it's Mr. Salters traveled from East London to Johannesburg via Bloemfontein to deliver boxes of seed. The map alongside shows the national roads of South Africa. So the national roads are indicated there. All the roads that are denoted with capital letter N are the national roads. Use the map above to answer the questions that follow, or use the map alongside to answer the questions that follow. Identify the type of scale used on the map. Come on, boys and girls. The type of scales, we only have 2 types of scales. It's either number scale or a bar scale. Okay, so in this case, if you look at this, that is a bar scale. Okay, so the answer for this one is bar scale. It cannot be a number scale. Bar scale. Boys and girls, if you had to say a number scale, we would assume that you have never been to school, or the last time you went to school maybe was about 5 years or 6 years ago, or you have never done maths lit in your entire life. Okay, so this is something that we would expect you to get it right. Bar scale, simple as that. Okay, and then the next question based on the same information, it's name only 2 national roads that Mr. Salters will travel on from East London to Johannesburg via Bloemfontein. Name only 2 national roads from East London. So where is East London? You see there's a red dot there. Okay, there's a dot there. That means this dot is for East London. Okay, then from East London to Johannesburg, must go to Johannesburg. So there's Johannesburg, but it must be via. So if I check on the map to get to Johannesburg, there are 2 ways. So it's either this way or the other way. Or there's another way where you can say here and so on. Okay, this one will also take you to Johannesburg, and then there we've got another one to Johannesburg and so on. But in this case, they specify, they say to Johannesburg via the Bloemfontein. So from Johannesburg, N6, and in Bloemfontein, when you get to Bloemfontein, is N1. Okay, so it's N6 and N1. So can either say N6 and N1, or you can say N1 and N6, but uh, they only need you to mention two. In some cases, the examiner might not even specify. To say just say mention the national roads. Okay, if there are two, they will expect you to mention two. But if you mention more than one, I mean more than two, it means you're going to lose marks. In other words, if the examiner expects that the answer must have two names and then you mention three, it means you are not sure about your answer, right? So you always have to be sure about your answer. Okay, and then number 3.3, still on the very same information, write down the general directions. General directions. Once they say general direction or compass direction, you are not going to explain. Okay, you are not going to explain, you just give a compass direction. That a person will travel from Cape Town to Harris. Okay, to Harris, from Cape Town to Harris. So there's Cape Town. When I check on the map, there's Harris. Okay, so in this case, we need to find the compass direction. Okay, so the compass in direction in this case, it's not indicated on the way it's supposed to face this way. So the car must be N there. I think it was cut off from the original map. So the north in this case is going to face up, or it's supposed to be facing up. So there's north, but now if they say write down the general direction that a person will travel from Cape Town to Harris, so from Cape Town to Harris, if I complete the compass there, I'll say there's north, there's never ever smoke weed. Okay, so you can see that this is between north and west. So this will be northwest, will be for the first part of the question. And then again, they say from Harris to Uppington. So from Harris, so it's still north, never ever smoke weed. Then from there, it means in general, you'll be moving between, you'll be traveling between north and east. Okay, so that will be northeast. Okay, all right. So the two compass or two general directions in this case are northwest and northeast. Okay, northwest and northeast. Okay, I'm sorry about the compass direction that is not indicated on the map there, but uh, just using my knowledge, then I know that the north must face up, but I'm sure in the examination it must be there. Okay, if it's not there, we would assume that the answer will not be, you will not be able to answer that question, but it must be there. Okay, then for the next question, it's Mr. Salter's wife wishes to visit Walvis Bay in Namibia during the December holidays. Mr. Salters comments that she would need a passport to go to Walvis Bay. Give a reason why his wife will need a passport to visit Walvis Bay. So now, if we look at the place Walvis Bay, they say it's in Namibia. So there's Namibia. So Namibia is another country. Okay, and then we all know that if you have to travel from one country to another, you will need papers, you'll have to have passport. Okay, so in this case they say give a reason why his wife will need a passport to visit, because Walvis Bay is in another country. It's in another country, or it's in the neighboring country. So if it's in the neighboring country, it means you need a passport. So very, very important. Okay, then number 3.5 is the fuel tank of Miss Salter's vehicle has a capacity of 75 liters. He claims that it will cost him 4% more if he fuels his car inland instead of at the coast. Verify with the necessary calculations whether his claim is valid or not. Okay, so if we look at the information that is given here, it's Okay, let me explain. What do they mean by inland and coastal? Okay, coastal are those provinces that have got the what can I say? So these are all the all the provinces that have got the coast next to them. Okay, although all those provinces that are next to the ocean. Okay, there's an ocean next to them. So those are the coastal. Like in South Africa, we say the coastal provinces are uh, Northern Cape, Western Cape, okay, Eastern Cape, and also KZN. Okay, those are the coastal provinces. So, but the prices of fuel, it's not the same, or the price of fuel is not the same as inland. Inland, we are referring to Free State, we are referring to Gauteng, Northwest, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga. So those are the inland provinces. Now, you can see what is indicated here that the prices are not the same. The prices are not the same there. So in inland, it's 22 rand 49. So inland, it costs more. And coastal is 21 rand 77. So they say, this one, they say, he claims that it will cost him 4% more if he fills his car inland. Okay. Now, how much more is it going to cost him? How much more is it going to cost him? Okay. So this one, you will pay 22 rand 49, and the difference will be, okay, let's see. So the difference in this case is 22.49. 22.49 minus 21.77, right? So it's going to cost him about 72 cents more, 0.72. So, but what percentage is this? So the percentage will be 0.72 over, okay, what is the price in the coastal? So it's 21.77. So this one, we write it in the form of a percentage. It's going to cost him 72% more. But what is that amount in the form of percentage? So if I take 0.72, I divide it by 21.77. The answer that I'm getting, then I multiply by 100. So this must be multiplied by 100%. The answer is, the answer I get 3.307, and so on and so on. If I round it off, it's going to be about 3.3. If I round it off to one decimal place, if I round it off to two decimal places, it's going to be 3.32. But in this case, I need to compare it as a whole number. So this will be, no, not 4%, but this will be 3%. If I round it off to the nearest percentage or to the nearest whole number. So when I do the calculation, I can see that it's going to cost him 3% more, not 4%. So if I go back to my calculation, it says verify with the necessary calculations. So now these are the calculations. These are the calculations. They say whether his claim is valid or not. So in this case, we can say his claim is not valid. Claim not valid. Okay, the claim is not valid. It's not going to cost him 4% or more, but it's going to cost him only 3%. All right, so this one will be only 3%. Right, then the next question, it's also taken from one of the previous question papers, Eastern Cape, June 2024. They say invitation cards for a party are in a rectangular shape with a circular photo of the birthday girl in the middle of the invitation card. So it's very important that whatever information is given, okay, make sure that the very same information is indicated on the picture. Just check if the information that is given corresponds with what is indicated on the picture. So we can see that in this case, they say with a circular photo of the birthday girl in the middle of the invitation. So you can see there's a circle, and then there we've got a diagram. An example of invitation card is given below and a diagram with dimensions. So an example of invitation card is given below and a diagram with dimensions. So the dimensions are given there. They say use information given to answer the question that follow. Calculate the area of the rectangular invitation card to the nearest millimeter. This must be millimeter squared. Okay, we don't have such thing as millimeter 2. It must be millimeter squared. So you may use the following formula, right? So if they say write your answer as millimeter squared, you have to make sure that the length and the width, that is how we make it easier. You start by converting the dimensions. Just ensure that your dimensions, both of them are in millimeters. Both the length and the width are in millimeters. Then your answer will be in millimeter squared. Now let us look at what is given here. We can see that the shorter side, which is the width, it's in millimeters. But the longer side, which is the length, it's in centimeters. So it means we need to convert. We need to convert the centimeters. What is our conversion factor? We all know that 1 centimeter is equals to 10 millimeters. Okay, this one is something that you should know, boys and girls. If you check your ruler, most of the rulers, the edges, one edge is in centimeter and the other edge is in millimeters. When you check on the other side, if it starts with 1 millimeter, then the other side, if it's in millimeters, it will start with 10 millimeters. That is to show that 1 centimeter is actually the same as 10 millimeters. So how do we convert from centimeter to millimeters? Obviously, we're going to multiply by 10. Okay, so the 15 centimeters we'll say is the same as what am I writing? 5 is 15 centimeters, and then I say 15 multiplied by 10, and then it becomes millimeters. So 15 multiplied by 10 is 150. Okay, that is where I had to start. Now both the length and the width are now in millimeters. I can simply do the substitution. So it's 150 millimeters multiplied by, I don't necessarily have to indicate the unit there when I do the substitution. And then for the width, it's 120. I know this is in millimeters, this is in millimeters, and then I'm calculating the area. So therefore the answer must be millimeter squared. The answer must be in millimeter squared. If I take my calculator, then 150 multiplied by 120, I'm getting 18,000. So that is 18,000. Okay, so I'm getting 18,000, then this is 18,000 millimeter squared. So that is the answer for number 4.1. As easy as that. What you had to make sure was everything that you substitute there, it's in millimeters. Then your answer will be in millimeter squared. Right. Then still on the very same information, they say hence. So hence, it means it's a follow-up. You must use the information from the previous question. It's either the information or you're going to use the answer from the previous question. Calculate the area of the rectangular invitation card without the photo to the nearest millimeter squared. So what we have calculated here in the previous question is we have calculated the area of this rectangle including the photo, including, because what is an area? The area is an amount of space within. So the amount of space that we calculated, amount of space within the boundary. So the amount of space that we calculated included the circle as well. But now they say without the photo to the nearest millimeter squared, it means we must now exclude the circle, right? We know that the rectangle we got, what was that? 18,000 millimeter squared. This is the area including the inner circle, the circle that is inside there. But now if I need to exclude it, it means I must subtract it. But now what is the area of the circle? Okay, so the area of the circle, likely in this case, the formula is given. Area of any circle is pi times radius square. So I will just do the substitution. Area equals to, the value of pi is 3,142. We always use 3,142 or whatever the examiner would give it to. But if the examiner gives you 3,142, it means you must use that 3,142. And then I open the bracket. I now need to substitute the radius according to this formula. But wait a minute, look at what is indicated there. What you see there, it's not a radius. Okay, what you see there, it's a diameter. So it means what we need to do is we need to work out the radius. The radius is 80 millimeters. Then we divide it by 2. So it means this is 40 millimeters. So the radius is 40 millimeters. Then now I can do the substitution. It's 40. Then I say to the power of 2. 3,142, then open bracket 40 to the power of 2. Boys and girls, you must be careful, especially if we've got a square there or we've got a cube. Most of you tend to multiply. We don't multiply there. If it's 40 to the power of 2, it means it's 40 multiplied by another 40. 40 multiply itself 2 times. If it was 3, it will be 40 multiply itself 3 times. So, but in this case, it's 40 multiplied by itself 2 times. So if I say 40 multiplied by 40, then I get 1,600. 3,142, then I multiply by 1,600. So the answer is, this is what I'm getting, 50,000. I'm sorry, not 50,000, but 5,027,2. Remember, our radius was in millimeters, so therefore this must be in millimeters squared. Okay. For our area to be in millimeters squared, our radius must be in millimeters. So the answer there is the area without the photo. Area without the photo will be, we are now taking the area of the rectangle, which is 18,000. Then we subtract 5,027,2. Okay, so it's 5,027,2. So I can simply use a calculator. 18,000 minus 5,027. I missed comma 2. It must be comma 2. Then I'm getting 12,972,8. And the unit there is millimeter squared. I'm just subtracting. So this must be the answer. 18,000 minus 5,027,2. Then I get 12,972. The examiner, without the photo, they say to the nearest square millimeters. Boys and girls, it's very, very important. Please do not make a mistake and you don't read the whole question. Very important that you read the whole question. I almost missed this one where we say to the nearest millimeter squared. To the nearest millimeter squared, it means you need to round it off to the nearest whole number. So to the nearest whole number, if I look at this one, it's 8. Once this is 5 or more, this will change to 3. But if this was less than 5, this will remain as 2. So in the end, the answer is 12,973 millimeters squared. Very, very important. It means they say a mark specifically for rounding in this case. So if you don't round off correctly, it means you're going to lose mark for that rounding. Okay, then the next question is, one of the guests buys a gift that is packaged in a rectangular box as shown below. She must wrap the gift box with wrapping paper. Calculate the total surface area in centimeters squared. Again, very, very important, centimeters squared of the paper that is needed to wrap the gift box. You may use the following formula. Now, if they say in centimeters squared, you have to be sure that everything that you are going to substitute in this formula, it's in centimeters. Everything that you are going to substitute in this formula, it's in centimeters for our answer to be in centimeters squared. Now, if I check the dimensions, I've got the length, which is indeed in centimeters. I've got the width, which is indeed in centimeters. I've got the height, which is indeed in centimeters. So I don't have to stress about doing the conversion. because everything is in the unit that I want. Now, when I do the substitution, I'll just say 2 open bracket, and then make sure that you substitute the correct value at the correct place. Very, very important. 38,8 multiplied by the width is 27.5, and then it's plus 2 open bracket. The width is 27.5, and then the height is 30. Okay, then it's plus 2. The length again is 38.8. Sorry, then I have to multiply by the height, which is 30. Okay, substitution is very, very important. Please make sure that you do the substitution first. And then with regard to simplification, boys and girls, there's more than one way of doing the answer. Some of you might be comfortable enough to key in everything on your calculator as you see it. But some of you might prefer to simplify first. You follow the BODMAS rule. You simplify, then after that, or you simplify what is inside the bracket. So this one I might still say 2, and then I'll get 38.8 multiplied by 27.5. This gives me 1067. Then the second part of the formula is this one. I still have 2. Then it's 27.5 multiplied by 30. Then that part is 825. The third part of the formula, I've got 38.8 multiplied by 30, and this gives me 1164. So it comes 1164. 1164. Okay, so this is what I'm getting. Then from this one, we can simplify. You say 2 times 1067 plus 2 times 825 plus 2 times 1164. Then I'm getting 6,112. Okay, then this will be centimeters squared. Remember, when I do the substitution, I don't necessarily have to indicate the units there. Okay, but as long as you know that the length, the width, and the height, all of them are in centimeters, in the end, the answer will be in centimeters squared. Okay, some of you might say from the substitution, you might go straight to the answer. If you are comfortable with it, you're welcome to do it. What matters is, as long as at the end of the day, your answer is 100% correct. So this is the answer for question 5. Right? And then for question 6 is Sandra washes her dishes by hand 3 times daily in 2 identical cylindrical basins. She uses one basin for washing dishes and the other for rinsing. Okay, each basin has a radius of 30 centimeters and a depth of 45 centimeters as shown in the diagram alongside. Sandra fills each basin to 3/4 of its capacity whenever she washes or rinses the dishes. Calculate how much water in liters she will use daily to wash and rinse dishes by hand. Note, this must be 1 centimeter cubed. It's equals to 1 liter. You may use the formula. So obviously, in order to calculate the amount of water in liters, okay, we are going to use the formula for volume. Okay, they say 3 times daily in 2 identical cylindrical basins. So I can calculate the amount for 1 basin. Okay, so for 1 basin, let's see. So for 1 basin, I will say the volume is 3,142, then is open bracket. The radius, now let's check the radius. Okay, in this case, the radius is 30 centimeters. So I'll say 30, and then I square it, and the height is 45. Okay, now if you look at the conversion factor is given as 1 centimeter cubed is equals to 1 liter. Already, this is giving you a hint that actually when you calculate the volume must be in centimeter cubed. So in order for the volume to be in centimeter cube, just ensure that whatever you substitute in this formula, it's in centimeters. The radius and the height, both of them are in centimeters. Okay, then when I simplify this, I get 3,142 open bracket, okay, and then square it times 45, and then times 3,142. I'm getting 127,251. Okay, 251, and then this will be a centimeter cubed. Sorry, then it means for one basin, the volume there is 127,251 centimeter cubed. Right, then I need to convert this to liters. Okay, so if I convert it to liters, if you look at the conversion factor, I've got 1,000 cubic centimeters is equals to 1 liter. So it means if I want to convert from centimeter cube to liters, I must divide by 1,000. So if I divide by 1,000, then I'm going to get 127,000. So this will give me 127,251. And it's liters. When it's full, when one basin is full, it's going to be 127,251 liters. But wait a minute, if you check, they say alongside Sandra fills each basin to 3/4. So she doesn't fill it up to the highest level. She doesn't fill it up to the rim. So it means it's only 3/4. Now, if I calculate the 3/4, I'll say 3/4, which is 3/4, multiplied by 127,251, and then liters. Remember, I'm not supposed to round off until I get to the final answer. So this one I'll say times 3 divided by 4. And then I get, okay, so this must be 127,251 times 3 divided by 4. I'm getting 95,43825 liters. So one basin will be 95,43825 liters for one basin. Now let me go back to my information. My information says 3 times daily in 2 identical. So I'll say for 2 basins, it's going to be 95,43825, and then I just multiplied by 2. So if I take that, I multiply by 2, then I get 190,8765 liters for 2 basins. Okay, by hand 3 times daily in 2 identical. So this is 2 of them. Right, so let me check. Sandra fills each basin to 3/4 of its capacity whenever she visits. Okay, calculate how much water she will use daily. Now for daily, okay, she's going to use 2 basins. So the total liters for the 2 basins is 190,8765. Okay, but it's 3 times. So for 3 times, I multiplied by 3. Okay, so maybe it's in the morning, it's during the day, and also in the evening. 2 basins. two basins on each occasion. In the morning is 2, during the day is 2, and then in the evening is 2. So this one will be 190,8765 multiplied by 3. I hope you can see what I'm writing there. Okay, so let me just put it there. So the answer there, okay, let me say 190,8765 liters multiplied by 3, and then the answer is 572. 572,6295 liters. Okay, so that is the answer. Now, boys and girls, this is a long one, but in most cases, when you have a question that needs a lot of calculations, it means the marks will also tell. Okay, it's just that in this case we did not indicate the marks, but you might find that the marks in this case are about maybe 5 to 7 marks or 5 to 8 marks. So if it's 5 to 8 marks, it means you have approximately about 10 minutes to answer that question. Approximately 10 minutes. You've got all that time to yourself. Just make sure that you do everything that is supposed to be done. Okay, since this one it's a long one, but you've got all the time to yourself, the marks will actually tell. If they say this is 10 marks or this is 8 marks, you're going to have about 8 to 10, because usually I would say 1 mark for 1 minute. So if it's 2 marks, try to take 2 minutes. If it's 5 marks, take about 5 minutes. Even if you take longer than that, and it must be about 6 or 7 minutes. But you can take about 20 minutes on a question that counts about 5 marks. So you'll be taking time for the other questions. Okay. Then the next question, it's Sharon wants to buy a new pencil holder to hold as much stationery as possible, such as pens, pencils, cookies, and whiteboard markers. She wants to make a choice between the 2 pencil holders, A and B, as shown in the diagram below. So there you've got stationery holders or pencil holders. Okay, you've got a cylinder, you've got the rectangular prism there. Determine the radius in centimeters of a cylindrical holder. So from the shapes, you must know that this is a cylindrical holder. Then there you've got a diameter indicated. So the diameter there it's 8 centimeters. So therefore the radius it's equals to 8 centimeters divided by 2. Then you get 4 centimeters. Very, very easy, boys and girls. I think up to for now, whether they give you diameter, they say write it as a radius, or they give you radius and they say write it as a diameter, you did a lot of questions that are based on such type of questions. So you must be able to answer it. Okay, for 7.2, I think the similar question. And then 7.3 is determine the conversion factor for centimeters to inches correct to 3 decimal places in the form 1 centimeter is equals to inches. Now, boys and girls, we are used to a situation where they give you a conversion factor and they say use the conversion factor to convert. Okay, but in this case, you are given 2 values in different units. Like for instance, if you look at this, we've got 2.36. They say 2.36 inches, which is the same as 6 centimeters. So this side, if you want it in inches, it's going to be 2.36, but in centimeters it's 6 centimeters. So it means anyone from South Africa can be able to interpret or to have an idea, and anyone from abroad, from another country where they're using imperial units, will be able to have an idea of how long is this. Okay, or how long this is. So from this one, it simply means 2.36 inches is the same as 6 centimeters. But let us look at this. They say we must write down the conversion factor. Now the conversion factor in this case, we're going to start by saying, you can see that the centimeter is on the left hand side. You can simply say 6 centimeters is the same as 2,36 inches. The 6 centimeters is equals to 2,36 inches. This is the conversion factor, but we need to write it in the simplest form. To write it in the simplest form, we must have 1 on the left hand side. So to have 1 on the left hand side, we divide by 6. Obviously, whatever we divide by on the left hand side, we must also divide on the right hand side. So this will be 1 centimeter. It's equals to, if I say 2,36 divided by 6, then this is 0,3. There, let me first write it out. I'm getting 0,39. Then I'm getting so many threes and so on and so on. Then this will still be an inch. Okay, this will still be an inch, but there's a clear instruction there. The instruction says correct to 3 decimal places. Okay, so if I have to correct it to 3 decimal places, it simply means I must have 3 digits after the comma. If I look at this, the 3 digits are 393. Will these digits remain as 393 or will it be 394? If the next digit next to it is less than 5, it means this will remain as 393. But if this number here, if the next digit was 5 or more, this will change to 394. So in the end, my answer will be 1 centimeter. It's equals to 0,393 and then it's inches. Okay, so that is the conversion factor. Now, this is how you're supposed to do number 7.3. Okay, now boys and girls, unfortunately, again, time is not on our side. I did not manage to finish everything that I'm supposed to do, but I have actually covered about 90%. But remember, the purpose of this presentation was just to refresh your memory. It is sort of a revision. Okay, it was just to refresh your mind about what you have covered throughout the year, but most of the work must still be done by you. You must go and make sure that you practice. Okay, as I indicated below, you cannot afford to fail the prelim, because if you fail the prelim, it simply means you are not ready for the final examination. So please go and study. Okay, now thank you very much. This will bring us to the end of today's lesson. Thank you very much for watching, and then I wish you all the best in tomorrow's paper, and then I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.